Hello guys, welcome back to ESENtaxa. Happy New Year 2024. Here in ESENtaxa today we are going to discuss about the new tax strategy in Italy for 2024, and we are going to discuss a little bit more in details about the convenience of apply the Impatriate regime versus the Forfait regime, the two most important tax regime that you can exploit if you want to move to Italy in order to pay less tax possible, not just in Italy but also in Europe. Because in 2024 we have some news in several countries in Europe, and we are going to show you how Italy became the best country to relocate if you belong to certain scenarios, certain situation, and if you perform certain kind of professions. Okay? If you're in this channel, just want to remind you that ESENtaxa talks about how to optimize your taxes if you want to move in a specific country, and we talk about Italy here. If you want to move, if you want to relocate in Italy, we are the number one channel that in English language explain very detailed aspect of the load of the tax clarification and allows you to understand if relocation to Italy tax-wise makes sense for you or not. In the description below the video you have all our details, our email contact, info@esentaxa.com if you want to write us, if you want to write us some clarifications, if you want to book a reservation with us, you also have in the description below our Calendly link. You can book a call, 20 minutes, 1 hour call, and most importantly we have 1 hour call plus tax simulation, which is extremely important to tax simulate your situation before moving to a specific country. In this case, as I said, Italy. Now, first of all, I want to tell you that in 2024, something happened in Europe. In a lot of countries, the tax regimes, the most favorable tax regimes known worldwide, have been shut. They disappeared completely. The famous case is Portugal. So Portugal had the famous NHR program abolished since 2024, 1st January 2024. Romania has the famous Norma de Venit, and it was like 1% taxes if you were an IT developer or high qualified profession, or if you belong to certain categories. You were paying 1% up to 100,000 euros or something. Of course, plus social security to pay in a side. So this also has been abolished. Okay? In Albania, we also cover Albania as a jurisdiction. And we said that in 2023, we discussed about the famous 0% corporate tax up to 120,000 euros as profit tax, as a profit of your company, and above which you pay 15%. Also, this one has been abolished in Albania. Now you pay 50% flat tax since the beginning, unless you incorporate, you create a company with 5%, as an IT developer or that works in a company that works in the fields of innovation or automation, then you're gonna pay 5% instead of 15%. That's the only possibility. So, as I said, has been abolished. We don't have any other jurisdiction with other exceptional tax regimes. The famous Bulgaria keeps this 10% corporate tax or income tax, but the bad sides of this is that you pay social security at the top of it, plus the fact you cannot deduct the real expenses. So 10% looks attractive, but it's not that big if you don't deduct enough expenses. There are no other countries that really worth moving to. For example, the famous Principate of Monaco, yes, you pay 0% at profit on your personal level, but you don't you have to give to the state 500,000 just to get residence and deposit this 500,000 in a bank account. The remaining jurisdictions which are more favorable are very small countries such as Andorra, Gibraltar, Cyprus, Malta, but they all are islands or small countries in a very difficult place to go, to reach. So you see, of course, all the taxes that you spare, it's not enough to cover the cost to moving there or live there. So Europe has these difficult situations now. There are no more tax havens in Europe. So we try here in ESENtaxa to explain how to defend yourself from the eager of the European countries. Now, why Italy is still one of the best going back to the topic of this video, why Italy is still the best, one of the best in Europe? Because despite the fact that Italy also had experienced a shrunk of the Impatriate regime, which was one of the most favorable regime in Italy so far, what was the restriction of the Impatriate regime? Was not abolished, absolutely not, it's still in place, but has been restricted in terms of the profession. Now you have to be in one of the specific profession in a specific list, and you have to belong to that list if you want to apply for the Impatriate regime. You have to be graduated. The Impatriate regime now grants you 50% deduction by default, and used to be 70 or 90% if you're moving in the south. But the Impatriate regime is still very good because basically you still have deduction of 90% all over the country if you are a teacher or if you are a researcher. And also this 50% can be increased by 60%, up to 60%, if you have a child with you, or if it happens to have a child during the 5 years time of the Impatriate regime. So Italy still is trying to defend his title of one of the best tax haven country in Europe, for new residents, of course, because these kind of rules are not applicable if you're already living in Italy. The only exception is the municipality in Italy, which still belongs to the Italian territory, municipality of Campione d'Italia, which is surrounded by Swiss territory, where the Impatriate regime works in exactly the same way, plus a 30% more deduction. So here you have 80 instead of 50, here 90, here you pass 100%. So here, in this case, you don't pay taxes at all. And the Impatriate regime works in Italy if you are an employee or if you are self-employed. That's it. All the other type of incomes are taxed at the ordinary rates. So, so this is the thing of Italy. So Italy still has this benefit. It's been shrunk, as I said, but it's still quite good. Moreover, Italy not just has this one tax regime like the rest of the other European countries, has a multiple tax regime that you can combine or you can cross-check with your specific situation. And this is what we do here in ESENtaxa. I'm just giving an example. How we work here in ESENtaxa comparing the tax regimes in Italy between Forfait Regime, between Impatriate regime, regime for high net worth individual and for pensioners. Okay? The most important one, the most requested one, are the Forfait regime versus the Impatriate regime. This is now in 2024, this is an analysis that we are going to do in 2024, Impatriate regime. So it's the analysis that we need to do now with our clients. So what is the best for you? Which is more convenient? So let's summarize the feature of two of them and let's compare them so you have an idea in which one you might fall into. Of course, this is not a real consultant, just to give you an idea, a general aspect. If you need to know if you fulfill all the requirements for both regimes, you have to contact us, you have to book a call with us, and we can tell you exactly through a professional consultancy call, tax consultancy call, if you are eligible for the Impatriate regime or the Forfait regime. And we also take into account the rest of your income abroad, because we also analyze your worldwide income, because when you move to Italy, this is not just this income that has to be taken into account, but also your income that you are producing from other countries, which is a very common situation among our clients. Okay, so when we evaluate these two tax regimes, the first things that we have to ask ourselves is that I'm going to move to Italy, I'm going to relocate to Italy because I want to set up a business there. Classical example, I want to open an Airbnb type of activity there. Fine. So which means that most likely I'm going to rent this activity to tourists. Or alternatively, I'm going to work remotely from home. Most likely all my clients might be from abroad. So when you issue your invoices as a self-employed or a freelancer, you don't care about the VAT. So for you, either the Forfait regime or the Impatriate regime, it's the same, it's neutral element. But if you have clients, private clients, or even business clients, a client that has a VAT in the Italian territory, then the VAT makes a big difference. And then for you, the Impatriate regime is more convenient because the Impatriate regime doesn't apply the VAT, the VAT, which is the big 22% in Italy. While the Impatriate regime, you apply the VAT, okay? This is a quite important thing. So here we are more competitive on the market, but on the Italian market, if you have clients in the Italian territory, these make more sense rather than this one, okay? Vice versa, if you fulfill the requirement for the Impatiate regime, but you have only clients from abroad, like B2B business, maybe the VAT, you don't care because this is never applicable, okay? So this is one of the elements. The second element could be how many incomes, how many type of incomes I have along with my self-employed income. Why? Because the forfait regime, you pay 5% taxes, after 5 years it becomes 15%, so this is a very good tax rate in Europe, but this is a substitutive taxation. What does it mean? It means that you substitute, it's a substitution of the progression of the RPF tax progressive system. So forfait regime doesn't use the progressive system taxation, it uses a flat tax of 5%. While the Impatriate regime, after the deduction of 50%, what remains falls into the RPF progressive system taxation from 23% up to 43% based on your income, okay? It's true that 50% of your income is tax-free. Then you pay the social security, you deduct the social security. Of course, in the Impatriate regime, you deduct also your real expenses, but then what remains, it's taxable under the RPF taxation. While the forfait regime, it doesn't work like that. You have a forfeit deduction, regardless your real cost or not. Then you deduct your your social security expenses, your pension, and then you pay 5% flat, which goes in parallel with other income. So if you have other incomes, for example, from abroad, they do not cumulate with what you produce with the forfait regime. Instead, in Impatriate regime, both incomes cumulate. You see? So both income, the 50%, remaining 50% plus rental income from abroad, they accumulate and everything flows into RPF taxation. While here, the forfait regime, still you apply 5% on this freelancer type of income, and the rest of the income will be taxed at the RPF taxation. So this is an element that a lot of people are not aware of. So this is one of the most important points that discriminates the choice between forfait regime and Impatriate regime. Now, another element, so this is the first element. The second element between those two regimes, the other element is the threshold. Here it's very important. The forfait regime has a very low threshold, 85,000 euro, above which you exit this regime and you move to ordinary VAT position, which means you're ordinary freelancer, you pay taxes after having reduced your real expenses, but then there are no specific or special deduction, anything. You pay your profit, you pay taxes on your profit, use the RPF on entire profit. So this is the max threshold that applicable for the forfait regime. Instead, for the Impatriate regime, the threshold that has been established in 2024, it's 600,000 euro. This is also another point that has to be taken into account. So the question in this point, is your business big or is your business small? You see? Or the majority, or you are a high net worth individual, but the majority of your income is coming from abroad. Then make no sense to accumulate everything under the Impatriate regime. Most likely it makes sense to stop at 85,000 euro as an income from Italy, and the rest will be taxed at the RPF. This is also another possibility. The forfait regime also doesn't account the real cost. So the cost of accounting here is cheaper accounting cost, because you have a forfeit deduction regardless your real cost. While in the Impatriate regime, you have the more expensive accounting. You see? This is also another element that has to be taken into account. And what else? The forfait regime and other things can be run in parallel with employee income. Let's imagine you're moving to Italy because you are hired by an employer, an Italian employer. They give you a salary. This salary, it's, I don't know, up to 30K of salary. If this salary, this employee Italian salary, doesn't pass 30,000 euro, you can run in parallel a forfait regime, which gives you big advantages because you don't pay the social security in the forfait regime. You skip paying the social security here, and then this 5% drops to 2.5%. Imagine how cheap is this regime. But only if your employee income doesn't pass 30,000. While here, there is no limits. Okay, you can have also a bigger employer an employee salary, and you can run in parallel. A freelance business, of course, has to be different, and in both cases a different type of business, and you don't pay, of course, the social security there, because when you are an employee, full-time employee in Italy, you don't pay social security on the freelance position. Thus, this is another important strategy that has to be taken into account. And then, of course, you can apply the Impatriate regime either on your employee income and on your self-employed income, on both. So the 50% deduction works on both, and the 50% of your employee stream of income and 50% from your self-employed stream of income, they flow both on the RPF tax bracket system. If you don't know how it works, the RPF tax bracket system in Italy, I invite you to watch the video in which we discuss how it actually works the progression tax system in Italy. It's called RPF. You can type on Google, on YouTube, ESENtaxa RPF 2024-2023. You know exactly the principle. The tax rates in 2024 have been shrinked, so you have 23% up to pay 23% taxes up to 28,000, then it becomes 35, up to 50,000, and above 50,000 you pay 43%, just to give you an idea. But of course you will have more details in that video, okay? So, and this just to give you an example of how it's important to choose between those two regimes in 2024 in Italy, which still, as I showed you in the beginning of the video, they still have a good tax rate compared to the rest of Europe, because the rest of Europe is dropping a lot, all the tax havens, and the rest of the countries, the bigger countries such as France, Germany, UK, they are raising their taxes, and the citizens are looking for other place to live, pay less taxes, enjoy their life. That's very simple. So this one are two most important tax regime in Italy. We have also the 7% flat tax for pensioners and the 100K flat tax for high net worth individuals. These two tax regimes cannot be overlapped with these two, it's forbidden by law, but we can check together in which one you might fall into, okay? So you might be maybe more eligible, it makes more sense for your specific case, works with this type of regime rather than this one, or vice versa. I hope I was clear. So we started 2024 with this glimpse of a tax strategy. As I said, in the description below the video you have our link to Calendly. You can book a call with us, 20 minutes, 1 hour, or 1 hour call plus tax simulation. And if you find that Italy is the right place to live for you, you can basically also have our accounting service in which we can assist you for the Impatriate regime solution, for the Forfait regime solution, and provide you the accounting on monthly basis. Next video, we're going to talk about the entities in Italy. We're going to deep dive to more important and complex structure in Italy. You might also find it interesting. So just subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified whenever we release this kind of information for free. Notification bell and like button to help us grow as a channel. Thank you and see you to the next video. Bye.